let's start with the big one. Let's start with the one everybody wants to talk about. This is so interesting to me. And Vegas did exactly what I thought Vegas would do and made this a double-digit spread. Indiana at Ohio State. Ohio State is an 11.5-point favorite. Indiana is undefeated. As everyone points out, Indiana has not played a particularly grueling schedule. But now they play a team that we are pretty sure is going to make the playoff. And if Indiana wins this game, they're definitely going to make the playoff, but they'll also make the Big Ten championship game. If Indiana is competitive in this game, it probably ensures they make the playoff. If Ohio State blows Indiana out, then it becomes very different. Ari, where do you fall on Indiana, Ohio State?
Mixed feelings, Andy. I've got mixed feelings. Okay, so let's work through this together. And maybe we'll take a few extra minutes on this one than the other ones because it is the big game. So let's start with pro Indiana, okay? Indiana, for the most part, has blown out every single team that it's played on its schedule. Now, it's had a few close games recently, but I think that it doesn't matter how good you are, that's going to happen to everybody, right? Like we just watched Oregon struggle on Saturday against a team that...
I mean, Michigan's really the only close game. That's the only one within 14 points.
And Michigan, when playing well, has a really good defense. Like, I can understand how that happens. Indiana, I think, is a very fundamentally sound team, too. Like, I think they're really well coached. I think they did a very good job of bringing in players that elevated the baseline talent level of the team. I think Curtis Rourke is a person I have in the top 10 on my Heisman ballot on 3. And I think that they're a team that hopefully will take their coach's temperament and not go into Ohio Stadium scared. Like, I think those are all very positive things. And I actually do believe that it is legitimately a top 15 program this year, 15 team this year.
Yeah.
Now, the number one question that I have, and it's never going to go away, and I don't think it's going to go away. I don't care how much college football changes. But for the time being, I'm going to revert back to 2020, Ari. And I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
How much can a coach, let's say Cignetti is a mad scientist genius who has done everything perfectly and that you would trust your kids to be raised by him. He's that good of a roster builder. How much can a coach do in a single offseason to help their team match up with the monsters that they're going to go face in Columbus this week? Because Ohio State, roster-wise, player for player, pound for pound, is the deepest, most talented team in the sport this year. This roster that Ohio State has this year is the last of a dying breed in the sport. How much can Cignetti even the playing field when it comes to that? Now, there is the negative side of Ohio State, which is they play grab ass a lot. I don't think they play as well as they are talented a lot of the times. They have some offensive line stuff that they're still working through. I think they're only like 3 weeks removed from having to retool the whole thing after they had a few injuries at left tackle. And I'm not necessarily sure that I am in the camp of Ryan Day blows a top 5 team out yet. Right. So I'm torn, but let me ask you the question again. How much can they even the playing field in a year? Like, it's one thing to be much improved. I think that they've already been, no matter what happens for the rest of the year, it's unequivocally a successful turnaround. But we went from Indiana's really pretty good to, oh my God, Indiana's going to be 6-0 to, oh my God, Indiana. But now we're at, can they beat Ohio State on the road? Like, at what point do you like turn off the optimism faucet and just go, this is enough improvement for 1 year?
Ari, is Nebraska better than Indiana?
Yes. No, sorry. Yeah, I know, but I know what you're saying is why I said yes. Yeah.
So now, granted, circumstances were different because Ohio State was working through those offensive line issues and probably didn't take Nebraska that seriously.
Yeah.
But you saw Nebraska play fundamentally sound defense and keep Ohio State in check offensively for most of a game. It's doable. Indiana's a team that gives up 2.5 yards per carry on the ground. Like, they have played fundamentally sound football against some good athletes. A lot of the teams they played in the Big Ten have a better recruiting profile than them. But what Curt Cignetti did is he went and got good players who were old and experienced out of the transfer portal. So the talent discrepancy is not as big of a deal as it would have been back in the day, because the age, experience, having been through big games before factor helps. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all need help sometimes. Sometimes it's something a lot more serious than what microphone input you're using. And I think the stigma of, hey, I've been talking to somebody, it's going away, but it needs to go away faster. And I'll tell you right now, I have had moments where I've needed to talk to somebody, and I have. I shout out Dr. Matt, who I went to see a couple of years ago, and really helped me with some stuff that had been kind of boiling under the surface for years. We figured out it's not easy to admit you need to talk to somebody, but BetterHelp makes it very easy to find someone and find someone that you connect with. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So if you visit betterhelp.com/Andy and Ari right now, you get 10% off your first month. So that's betterhelp.com/Andy and Ari, ANDYANDARI. So both our names with and in the middle. 10% off your first month. You can help yourself a lot. You're carrying around stuff. It's hard. Holiday season, I know all that, a lot of that kind of baggage tends to pile up. Now's the time to talk to somebody. BetterHelp.com/Andy and Ari. What I look at this, the way I look at this is I'm comparing Indiana to Penn State more. Like, I am using this game to compare Indiana to Penn State. And perhaps that's because I have to do that bracketology column every week. And I have to see where those two stack up, even though they're not going to play each other. And Penn State has undeniably better talent. Undeniably. But like, if I'm looking at Indiana's offense and Penn State's offense, while an NFL scout may like Drew Aller better, I'll take Curtis Rourke in a college football game. I will definitely take Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper over anybody Penn State has at receiver. So you have to ask yourself, if Indiana can play a similar game defensively to what Penn State played against Ohio State, can they put up some points? Because that's all, like, that's the difference. Penn State could not put up any points on offense.
Yep.
If Indiana puts up a few, we're talking about a very competitive game here.
Yeah.
They have, and then they have the bye week. Like, everything sets up as well as it possibly could for Indiana, the way the schedule worked out. So the only thing that doesn't set is they have to go to Columbus as opposed to Ohio State coming to Bloomington. But I feel like they are positioned as well as they possibly could be. Now, is it possible that Ohio State just physically overwhelms them? Yeah. There's no one like Jeremiah Smith that Indiana has seen all year. No one. And it may be that they don't have anybody who can deal with him.
And when you say the physical part, that doesn't have to happen in quarter one, right? No.
It can happen in quarter four after getting leaned on for 3 quarters.
Exactly. Like, this could be, and this is what I think I'm going to pick, because I think Indiana is very good, and I want to respect how good they are. I don't think they're going to cover the spread. I think that they're going to play a close competitive game through 3 quarters, and I think the dam is going to break in the 4th quarter. And that's not an insult, because I think that that's what should happen most of the time when Ohio State plays teams. But what Curt Cignetti has done is he has taken a broken down Honda Civic. He has given it a new paint job. He has put a new engine in it. He has made it a fast as hell car. And that car is desirable from people who like driving fast, and it increases the value, and it is a much better car than it was a year ago. But it's not going to go win a race with a Ferrari. Now, he could use the money with the Honda Civic that he souped up on his own to flip the car and buy another car that he can flip up. And this is how the building process begins. But Ohio State has a $20 million roster, and they're playing at home, and it's a top 5 game, a thing that Ryan Day has been criticized for not doing well in, which maybe is a point for your Indiana side, because I think you're going to pick Indiana.
But the difference between the top 5 games that Ryan Day has been criticized for not playing well enough in is in all of those games, the talent level has been fairly equal.
That's where I'm going here.
Yeah.
So I think that if Ohio State plays a very good football game for their standards, like if they take this seriously and they come out, and they better, by the way, because if they lose this game, like there's no guarantees of anything for this team.
Correct.
I think they're going to win the game like 31-17 or something, or 34-17. And it's going to be a close competitive game for 2.5, 3 quarters. And Ohio State's going to score a touchdown or 10 points in the fourth quarter.
So like Georgia, Tennessee last week, essentially.
I think basically what you saw with Georgia, Tennessee. And that doesn't mean that I don't think that Tennessee should make the playoff or could make the playoff. It just, that's the type of game I'm anticipating. I don't think Ohio State's going to come out and beat the crap out of them and win 45-0. I think Indiana's going to get points, and I think they're going to be competitive, but I just don't know how, like, there's only so much that my brain can handle, Andy, in terms of how much the sport has changed. I keep hearing the sport has changed. The sport has changed. I know it has. But this is like the last of the examples of what a super team could be based on what Ohio State returned and added to its roster. And this is a team that was souped up in the offseason. I think that Indiana could beat 85-95% of the teams in college football, but this is the monster of the sport on the road. Like, this is, and like also too, we've kind of punted on Ohio State being one of the great teams of the sport this year in a world where you think everybody sucks. I have not. I think that they still could be that team.
Oh, they have a roster that should scare anyone that would play.
And it's like Oregon is the only team that we all have we don't even talk about them that much. We have as a consensus have said is the best team in college football because they haven't lost yet. They don't have any bad week. Like Ohio State's lone loss is a 1-point loss on the road at Oregon in a game in which they had a pretty tough penalty at the end there that would have, took them out of field goal range and cost them the game. Like, I don't know that I'm out on Ohio State yet. Now, that said, on high alert for letdown central, because this is what seems to happen with them. So I'll give you the floor now, but I think that, do you think the 34-17 or just like right over that number, like a 12 to 14 point win is a rational thought in this scenario?
Perfectly rational. And I think, okay, like I said, the Georgia Tennessee game last week is a great example of that, because that was a 8.5, 9.5 point spread, depending on when you got it. You could have lost. Like, Tennessee could have covered that spread, but Tennessee wasn't going to win the game. At least based on what we saw in the second half. Like, it wasn't going to happen. So I can see that. I could definitely see that. But I'm going to go with Goat Dog here. A souped-up 96 Honda versus a Ferrari. If Dom is driving, I take the Honda. He was referring, of course, to Dominic Toretto, the hero of the Fast and Furious movies. He starts out as the villain, becomes the hero.
And here
Curt Cignetti.
And here I thought all 13 of those movies were the same. I guess there's some depth to it.
Well, no, the first one was about drag racing, then it became about superheroes. So once The Rock showed up, it was all over. But Curt Cignetti is Dominic Toretto. I'm just imagining Coach Siggs with a Corona at the family barbecue on Sunday after they beat Ohio State in the horseshoe. Coach Siggs is Dominic Toretto.
Is that you? Like, is that you picking Indiana to win the game? I just want to be clear.
Nope. I'm not.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, are we doing this?
No. Nope. But I am going to pick Indiana to cover because I do think they're going to keep this close. I actually think the game's going to play out similarly to what you said. I'm just envisioning that it takes a little more for Ohio State to break the dam, or that Indiana has some sort of furious thing at the end where they're still in it at the end. I think they are well coached enough. They're experienced enough. that they're going to be able to hang. They're not going to get blown off the field by this team. So I will take Indiana to cover.
All right, that's good. We're off to a good start. We're on opposite sides of this thing here. By the way,
the
spread
we
did
agreed on
open
pretty much every pick last week. So well, look, we were right on a lot of them. We weren't right on the big one, but we were right on
the spread of this.
Kansas
by the way,
BYU
is now almost out past 12. So like people are predictably betting up on Ohio State on this one because Ohio State's a pretty regular betting source, or people like betting on them a lot. So it's happening. But if you like Indiana, I would wait because I think it's probably going to move a little bit closer to 14 by Saturday, if I had to guess.